Friends, welcome to part 1 of our video presentation on Chapter 13. Chapter 13 deals with a set of issues related to leading the information systems function or leading the IT department. And part 1 is an introduction or an overview of some of the high level of strategic issues that a senior technology leader encounters when he's in charge of an IT department or an IS function. Now, managing or leading an IS department or an IT department involves managing IT assets that fall into the following three broad categories. First of all, it's the technology category. Someone in charge of the IS function needs to manage computers and communications infrastructure that enables information sharing over standard IT platform. So so basically, the first large group of assets that need to be managed is the so-called technology group of assets. Now, the second group of assets that need to be managed, and some people would say that this is the most important group, is human resources, because at the end of the day, there are people behind technology, behind hardware and software, and your IT infrastructure, your IT department is as good as people who stand behind those technology assets. To phrase it differently, nowadays technology is relatively cheap. It's relatively accessible to everybody, so buying technology is not a problem for a lot of companies. Now, managing technology, making sure that this technology is operational, reliable, available to people so that they can meet their information needs, is something that is done by human resources. So that's why some people would say that leading IT function or managing IT department is no different from leading in a marketing department or a finance department, because the ultimate goal of leading, regardless of which department that leadership is practice, is managing people, leading people. So human resources is another category of assets that a senior technology leader needs to manage. And area number 3, business IT relationship. Another important, another important category of assets that IT executives need to manage is relationships. Most importantly, the relationships between the IT department and the overall organization. But there are also other types of relationships. For example, relationships between the IT department and software or hardware vendors. The relationship within units and between different units, encompassing both the IT department and non-IT departments. So basically managing relationships. Again, this is another important area, and it's hard to say whether it's number one, the most important area, or least important. Probably very, just it's enough to say that it's a very important area. And my dissertation kind of touched on that, by the way. You see, over the years, IT has had a bad relationship with the rest of the organization. If you think about it at the individual level, just think about like yourself. If you are part of any organization, if you're an employee working for an organization, you only think of IT when something goes wrong. When computer is not working, when internet is down, when the network is down. That's when you think about IT. And typically, obviously those thoughts are not very positive, because again, you think about IT when something goes wrong. When everything goes well, and technology is so much embedded into our lives nowadays, where pretty much anything that you do nowadays as a student, as an employee, as a manager, as a professional, pretty much everything is done using computers, using technology. So it's so much embedded into our lives and into our work that we don't notice it, right? So we don't notice all the work that goes into supporting that availability of technology that supports our daily tasks and work-related processes. So this is just like one example. There are all kinds of, I'll post an article of mine that I wrote about this, about the CEO and CIO relationships. So there I discuss like some of the specific factors that seem to stand in between basically business leaders and technology leaders getting along. But nevertheless, all three areas, in no particular order, are very important areas where a senior IT executive needs to manage assets. So basically, to phrase it in a different way, being a technology leader means managing technology assets, human resources, and also the relationships between the IT department and the rest of the organization. Now, over the years, the role of an IT or an IS executive within an organization has changed. I would say it has changed for the better. Now, in the old days, technology was viewed largely as a supporting tool. At the level of individual executives, computers, they were viewed as a proletarian tool similar to a typewriter. So in other words, computers were something that in the view of senior executives, maybe 1, 2, 3 decades ago, computers was something that was similar to a secretarial tool, for typing, retrieving information, or something that an executive should not get involved. But over the years, computers become, so much embedded into daily work, not only of employees, clerical employees, operational employees, but also senior management, that the attitude has changed. I mean, executives, starting with the technology leaders such as Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, they started using computers in their daily lives, and it became integrated into their daily lives, into their managerial and executive activities. So computers were no longer viewed as some kind of simple support tool, number crunching tool. It was viewed like as a strategic tool for doing business, including doing business at the executive level. So that was one thing. So the attitude has changed, and also to add to that, for a long time, IT executives, they were not viewed as candidates for the CEO role. If you read research over the past 2 decades about the background of CEOs, chief executive officers, right? Most of the time you will see that most of them, they come either from finance or marketing department. Okay, very rarely you had an executive, a CEO who came from an IT background. But again, those things have changed, and nowadays the stock market and the business environment is getting more dominated by the technology firms such as Apple Computers, Microsoft, Oracle, and many others. So for those kind of companies, sometimes it makes sense to promote a senior technology leader to the CEO position, because for a lot of technology companies, IT is the blood, is the essence of their business. I think an even better example would be a .com company, an internet company such as Google, because at the heart of their business model, at the heart of their value proposition is computers, networking. So somebody who has very good practical and working understanding of technology would be a great candidate for the CEO role. And that's why in those kind of organizations, CIOs, chief information officers, or senior technology leaders, are very likely to be promoted to a senior executive role. So basically, the role of an IS leader, of a senior senior technology executives within an organization has changed. It has changed for the better, where technology leaders have become more influential, more powerful within their own respective organizations. So why did that happen? Well, again, I gave you like this answer, a very high-level answer, because technology became very important for a lot of organizations. But to break this down, even further, there were opportunities for strategic IT applications. In addition to technological change, meaning in addition to companies increasingly relying on technology in their processes, there were many opportunities for strategic IT applications. Basically, it means using information technology to reinvent an organization or the entire industry. One case that is worth mentioning is the case of Lands' End, where technology was used to redefine the apparel industry, where clothing was no longer viewed as some kind of commodity. It was viewed as a highly customizable product. That's what Lands' End did with the help of technology. They started offering those custom tailored clothing items. So that was like a strategic move. It wasn't just about improving operations. It was about redefining the business of Lands' End, and perhaps redefining the entire apparel industry, because with this IT application, producing quality clothing items was not good enough. Everybody had to customize and cater to the current needs or fashion tastes of the public in real time. And then, as I mentioned, you had increased IT-savvy business managers. In the 1990s, there was this rumor circulating that Bill Gates had an email which was like billg@microsoft.com, and if you send an email, you could get a response once in a while. So the rumor was that basically Bill Gates had his own email account and he was checking it personally, which was true, I think. Bill Gates was personally checking account. Now there was another, I forgot the exact email, but you can easily find it online. There was also like a website, I remember, that basically stored emails received personally from Steve Jobs, and I think his email was something like steve@apple.com. So if you send an email once in a while, he would send a response, and then people would collect those responses and post to that website. And typically those responses are very brief, somewhat ironic, sometimes cynical, but most of the time very funny. So for example, I remember there was an email sent to Steve Jobs complaining about about the fact that iPhone 3 was not very good at receiving wireless signal, and then the response was like a one-liner, something like "get over it," something like that. So people found it funny and interesting, so they kept track of it. But what those examples illustrate is that executives became increasingly comfortable with computers. They increasingly viewed computers as an essential tool for their life, for their business. So that's why the attitude of other employees and other managers has changed. And all in all, it's all about ubiquitous IT usage. As IT became ubiquitous in all industries, all companies, all organizations, not just technology industries or technology companies, the role of senior IT leaders has changed. It became more important. Now, what are some of the top issues that senior executives deal with? Now, this comes from an outlet called MISQ Executive. It stands for Management Information Systems Quarterly Executive. Now, I'm quite familiar with this journal. In fact, I tried to publish there a few times. Just to make the story short, there is a flagship research journal in the field of information system. It's called MIS Quarterly. Okay. Now, MIS Quarterly is too academic. It's more like for hardcore researchers, like university professors. So I think around like 20 years ago, there was this initiative to create an executive version of MIS Quarterly academic journal, and that became MIS Quarterly Executive. And my advisor, Dr. Blake Ives, I think he was one of the founding editors of MISQ. He was the founding editor of MISQ Executive, or one of the first editors. I'm not sure. He's the one who wrote that case about Land's End and another case about AOL privacy scandal that you might have read. So so basically, this MISQ Executive Journal is geared towards executives, towards practice, not towards academic research, and they publish like different articles dealing with various important current topics in relation to managing the IT function or leading the IT function. Now, one of the things they do, I think every year they release the so-called senior technology executive survey, where they try to identify the most important issues that senior technology leaders are dealing with. And those issues, they change from year to year, but those 5 seems to be like the most common themes that appear in MISQ executive surveys every year. First of all, business productivity and cost reduction. I mean, I told you before that IT function is increasingly viewed as something that is a cost center, meaning something that demands money, but something that does not necessarily produce money. So because of that, senior technology executives are under constant pressure to contribute to the company's bottom line and to keep their costs down, so that they are not viewed as money wasters. Business agility and speed to market. So IT is increasingly expected to support operations so that businesses become agile, more responsive, faster when it comes to executing their processes, introducing new products to the market, and so forth. IT and business alignment. It's similar to managing IT relationships. Basically, IT business alignment means that the IT function needs to be aligned with the strategic goals or with the overall strategy of an organization. So whatever an organization does, whatever vision it has, IT needs to support it, because oftentimes due to communication gaps, there is a misunderstanding as to what organization needs to achieve. For example, an organization may be focused on providing superior customer service while IT is focused on cost reduction. Now, those two may not be well aligned, because in order to offer superior customer service, you may want to invest into technology, into CRM, into consumer analytics. So this is something that IT needs to ensure, that their operations are aligned with the overall organizational goals and strategies. IT reliability and efficiency, again, a big area. I told you that we often think of IT only when something goes wrong, when computer is not working or the network is down. So this is a very important area. And in some industries, in some organizations, this downtime can be quite costly. Let's say we're talking about stock trading applications, where a system being down for a few hours can mean big losses because market fluctuates and billions of dollars move every hour. And then business process reengineering, basically using technology to improve organizational processes. So those are like the most frequently quoted areas of concern for senior technology leaders, and those areas, they reappear from year to year. The order may change, some new items may be introduced, but these 5 seem to appear in every survey. Okay, you can also say that being a senior technology leader involves establishing information systems governance. Now, I would like to expand a little bit on governance. Now, you need to understand that governance is not management. And I would say that governance is definitely not micromanagement. So basically, IS governance means you, as a senior executive leader, you shouldn't tell every employee within the organization, meaning the employee within your IT department or somewhere else in the organization, you shouldn't tell that employee what to do on a daily basis. Instead, you should create a governance framework, meaning like a set of rules, policies, and shared beliefs and values that govern behavior, so that people, they decide on their own what to do and what is the best for the company within the framework of governance that you establish as a senior technology leader. And IS governance typically involves developing some policies that outline decision-making and accountability for computers and networks, and also for software. So hardware, networking equipment, which probably falls into the area of hardware, and application software. So IS governance largely outlines decision-making, authority, and accountability in relation to these 2 categories. So the kind of decisions or policies or rules in relation to computer and networking operations are related to hardware, local area network operations, and then in the area of application software, the decisions, the rules, the policies may be related to acquiring software, implementing software, maintaining or upgrading existing systems, and also acquiring or developing, purchasing individual software applications. So IS governance deals with these 2 broad areas. Now, IS governance can be centralized, can be decentralized, and federal. Now, centralized means, just as you can see here, all decisions in relation to hardware operations and software applications, they're centralized. In other words, they're made at the level of the IT department. Decentralized means like all the decisions, all the operations in relation to the hardware infrastructure, networking infrastructure, and application software is decentralized, meaning delegated to individual departments and units. For example, if it's a big corporation, a diversified corporation that has many companies, then each company is responsible for their own IT infrastructure and set of applications. And then you have federal or federated. It's basically a hybrid. So the infrastructure decisions and development of infrastructure is centralized. So they have like a central corporate IT department. But then application needs are decentralized. Every department has its own has authority to buy and develop their own portfolio of applications. And then you have customized, where it's basically different combinations. You have CND and CND in both areas. So which one is better? Well, it depends on a lot of factors. It's clear that centralized IS governance can be quite beneficial, because once things are centralized, you have certain economies of scale and economies of scope. In other words, everything is done once in the central IT department for all units, for all organizations. So there is a considerable cost saving and considerable simplicity. So I think centralized approach is applicable to large, well-established companies where all the aspects of operations are known, and it's just a matter of optimizing and streamlining them. Now, decentralized infrastructure, decentralized IS governance setup can be beneficial, I think, for growing companies, the companies that are still going through growth. In that case, you may want to decentralize those decisions so that individual organizational units figure out on their own what works best for them. And once the organization reaches a level of maturity, then you can start centralizing it to improve efficiency of operations. And then federal or customized, it can be useful for hybrid approach. So let's say you have a well-established company that overall has a centralized approach to IS governance, and then they have a couple of spin-offs or a couple of new branches in different countries. Then you may still keep your organization as centralized, but you may want to decentralize a little bit those new units, new organizational spin-offs, in different countries. And then customize can be used to to take care of that hybrid approach where you have different situations in the corporation, different companies under the umbrella of one single corporation at different stages of development. So you may want to create like a hybrid approach. But of course, I would say that doing those hybrid things, it's a bit costly because now you have more things to worry about. Centralized is relatively cheap. It's relatively simple. And decentralized in a way is simple because you let people do whatever they want to. But of course, you lose control and you may lose efficiencies here. Now, being everything to everybody, it's a bit costly, and sometimes everybody is unhappy if you try to do that. Okay, friends. So this concludes part one of our video presentation on chapter 13 that deals with leading the IS function. So part one gave you like a very high-level introduction into the kind of issues and areas that you have to deal with when you are a senior technology leader within an organization. Thank you for listening.